So welcome to those people who are on YouTube, and that's working and it's live. Okay, so if I just share my screen then for the art. Share screen. So I'll start recording it now. Shall I? Is that okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome everybody. First of all, can I check, can you see my screen which says Wednesday the 30th of September at the top?
Yes.
Yes, I'm not showing anything else. So welcome to this event. ALL's National Welcome to Trainee Language Teachers. And we've just put there our etiquette that throughout all of our webinars, we're always professional and we're always kind. And we're very happy to host the events. Don't make any charge for it. And speakers give their service without payment. Volunteers run the event. And everybody's responsible for what they say. So really do welcome you. My name is Helen Myers, and I'm really I think, did you call me the webinar mistress or something, Stephen? I've got a term anyway. I tend to be the person who starts off webinars. Basically, I've got the Zoom account that we're using. So I'm just going to do the housekeeping at the beginning before we go on to the important people, the speakers. So first of all, if you have come in as a number or as an iPad, if you could rename yourself, that would be great. We'd love to know who you are. First name and second name would be great. Please feel free to use the chat. We love it. We love to see the interactivity. It's good to know that you're there. So you can be agreeing with things. You can be adding extra information. If you want to say who you are, that's fine. If you've got a question for anybody, we suggest you put a Q in front of the question. And then that means that the speaker, who might not have time to be looking at it while you're writing it, afterwards can scroll through and we can find out anybody who had a question. The session's being recorded. And we'll get links to everybody tomorrow to any recordings. If any presentations are available, we'll send those to you. And also we download the chat. So anything you write, you know, if or anybody else writes, if you want to save it, you will get a copy of it. It's due to run for about an hour. Absolutely no need to apologise if you need to leave early. We totally understand. And we're very grateful to see you on a weekday evening. We suggest that you turn off your webcam during the actual presentation. That's because that can affect sometimes apparently the bandwidth for some people, but please do switch it on again at the end. We like to see faces and we like to just have a little chat for anybody who can stay at the end. That would be lovely. There are going to be some breakout groups and they're going to be just short and sweet. If you're stranded at all, don't worry. We'll look after you in this room, in the main room. So, you're going to be hearing from a variety of people who will all introduce themselves as they come on. They're all people who are involved with the Association for Language Learning. So we've got Stephen Fawkes, Annalise Gordon, Judith Rufeza, Gina Hall, Susie Bure, Nick Mayer, and I'm Helen Myers. And this is a mixture of photos here. Some are official ones, but most of them are just from a little, I just looked at my album and saw where people had come along to various events. So we're about to be on air. Well, we are on air now. So now I'm going to pass over to Stephen. Stop share. So you need to take your mute off, Stephen. And do you want to share your screen?
Not at the moment, no, because I'm going to hand over straight away to Annalise. I'm just going to say thank you all for coming. It's lovely to be with language teachers. You'll discover that in your careers as they begin. But the welcome is going to come this evening really from Annalise, my colleague with whom I've been a volunteer on ALL for, I'm not going to count how many years. Over to Annalise.
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everyone. As Stephen said, my name is Annalisa. Yeah, and we go back probably about 30 years, you and me, Stephen. So we've known each other for a long, long time through ALL. As you can see on the screen there at the moment, my full-time day job is as Director of the Institute of Education at St Mary's University, which is a large teacher training provider. And actually scrolling through some of the names, I can see some of the St Mary's trainee teachers are attending this webinar, so welcome to you guys this evening as well. As Stephen said, Helen said, been involved with the association for many, many years, and it's absolutely central and core to my own professional development as a language teacher and what I've gone on to and done latterly. I have been a president. If you want to think about being president sometime in the future, it's currently a 2-year post. And I was president a few years back, and I'm now still on the board of governors there, board of trustees rather, not board of governors. What do we know about language teachers? I suppose from all that experience, all those years and years being part of the Association for Language Learning, we know some very key things about language teachers, and just reflect as you're looking at them here on which ones of them apply to you. I suspect pretty much all of them. Our overriding passion as language teachers is to help young people explore language, its grammar, the fun of the vocabulary, the changing nature of language. More than that, though, we want to enhance young people's understanding of culture, perhaps now even more acutely important than ever before. We also want to make sure that we're encouraging communication, quite tricky in current times with lots of schools and situations with face masks on, but certainly encouraging communication and that whole self-expression.
I do apologise.
I just encourage
normally mute everybody. I'm about to mute everyone, and then I'll make sure that you are not mute, Anna.
Okay, thank you.
So, and I'm afraid I'm not going to allow you to unmute yourselves, but I will at the end. So, Annalise.
Perfect. That wonderful bit of communication, self-expression that comes in so many language classrooms. Obviously, for the last umpteen years, I've been a languages teacher in inner London, a head of department, an advisory teacher, which is where I first met Stephen Fawkes. Lots and lots of opportunities. In my most recent work as a modern languages PGCE tutor and now as director, I've spent hours and hours in classrooms, absolute privileged position, watching trainee teachers teaching, watching more experienced teachers teach, but that level of communication and fun that comes, the self-expression that comes with young people is just crucial, and language teachers must obviously model that too. Hugely creative activities going on all of the time, and I would argue, having observed quite a lot of different subjects being taught in school, that modern language teachers are unique. The amount of energy that is given by your average modern language teacher in a classroom is above and beyond that I see in many, many other classrooms. Really, really important people. Other things we know about language teachers are here. We know that language teachers need one another. Can be quite tough teaching languages as a general of why not just English? Why should we bother? Brexit's on the way anyway. Sorry, I find myself £10 for mentioning that word. Just absolute crucial that people stick together and draw the commitment, the passion for languages that brought all of us together into the profession in the first place. Make sure that we keep that flame burning, if you like, because we do need those connections with the wider world out there of language teachers more broadly, the opportunities to learn and to network from one another and so on. The third bullet point here, I don't think when I trained to teach, I would have given much credence to. This idea, I was just very keen to get on and teach and actually get on and do it. But over time, I've got a bit wiser, and I now realise that the importance of having an awareness of our professional history, the background, why languages is now in the position it's in, why it's being taught as it's now being taught, indeed even why perhaps our GCSE and A-level specifications look like they do. Understanding that whole historical pathway is very important to us as language teachers if we're going to really keep reflecting and working out what's best for the children and young people in front of us right now. For me, probably the most important reason that I've been a member of the Association for Language Learning is that bit about having almost an injection of passion, an injection of like-minded people who want to work together, opportunities to share good practice, professional development. And so from that point of view, those of us speaking at this webinar today would say that everybody absolutely has a home in the Association for Language Learning. What is it? You may well already have become a member. You may have checked something out about it, but if you haven't yet, then importantly, what you need to know is it's the major professional association for teachers of all languages and at all levels and in all sectors. So we would welcome teachers in teaching predominantly in the state sector. We have colleagues who teach in the independent sector. We have colleagues who teach in primary, others in secondary, some at sixth form and so on. But it's of all languages that are being taught in our schools. It's not a union, and I think that's quite important. It's a group of volunteers, essentially. It says there at the bottom, it's run by teachers for teachers. Obviously, we have a small team who work in an office that help some of the backdrop support, but predominantly the work that happens is due to amazing people like Helen hosting tonight's webinar, hours and hours of work, really because we're just committed to one another and wanting to make the language profession as a collective group of people really thrive and flourish. The only way we can do that is obviously via membership subscriptions, and I'll come to that at the end. But it's very much run by teachers for teachers, and we hope, I think there was something like 150 of you on the participants when I started. Now I can't see that tab anymore, but we would really hope that as many of you as possible will get involved. Oh, 208, I can now see it. As many as possible of you will get involved in your local areas. What does ALL do? What does the association do? Well, we represent interests of members. So if I give you a couple of just very small examples, there's been obviously a lot of discussion about GCSE exams in the current COVID climate. And what should happen in that context. And the association can gather together groups of teachers to meet, to discuss, and then feed that information back through to the exam boards, back to the Department for Education and so on. That kind of way of representing interests of members is key. The group of ALL members at the moment who are involved in teacher training specifically, so including me obviously, but other people too, our current focus there is trying to work out what's going to happen with the new immigration directives policy that will come in from January, because we know that we absolutely thrive and need and benefit from many foreign nationals, EU nationals teaching in our schools. And it's looking a little bit shaky for that in 18 months' time with current things. So we're trying to gather information together so that we can represent those views back. Obviously, lots of information and support, and I'll share with you in a minute one of the best ways you can get a weekly update of information. But there's always going to be a friendly voice, a friendly person out there. If ever you had a question about anything to do with your classroom, you could pretty much email or contact via Twitter any of the people speaking tonight, and I can guarantee you someone would have replied within 24 hours. Obviously, we're contributing to national debates as we go, particularly around curriculum development and so on. And the association also produces some publications. It's not a major part of what we do, but it's a really essential part. There's a wonderful magazine called Languages Today. Comes sometimes in hard copy. Latterly, the last edition was an online copy. But the Languages Today magazine has a nice feel to it. It's the kind of thing you can read on the bus. It's not heavy, but it's really informative in what it does. Just opportunities to get a little sneak preview into the world of other fellow language teachers, what they're up to, spark some ideas, get some inspiration, if you like. We also produce a journal, and actually for you as trainee teachers who are perhaps writing essays, including at master's level, I'm sure, then the journal, the language learning journal, which you can access through the website, will be an essential part of your reading. Very learned, peer-reviewed journal, as you would expect from a professional association. There's also a huge amount of CPD, professional development opportunity, much of which at the moment is free because it's online. Clearly, once we get back face to face, then we may have additional cost, things to do with actually hiring a place to meet, providing some refreshments and so on, but very much tailored to your needs. So if there were a group of you who felt absolutely you needed a session on, I don't know, aspects of technology or something, then as long as you let somebody know, pretty much would guarantee that someone would put the webinar on. Helen's London branch provides huge numbers of webinars, which are open to everyone. You don't have to be in London to join in on those. We do also every year have a conference. It's a residential conference. We just sneaked the one this year. Gosh, it was only in March. It feels like a million years ago. In March 2020, we met in Manchester. And then the following week, the whole country went into lockdown. So that's really the last time that I've physically seen many of the people, members of the association, but we've remained in contact throughout because of so much online opportunity there. And that will continue, of course, and happen again next year. Why would you join? Well, I tried to put myself in your shoes, really. You're embarking, many of you changing careers. You've had high profile jobs in other things, perhaps. Many of you with lots of school experience, some of you with not very much school experience. We've got native speakers of the languages, we've got non-native speakers, huge range of reasons that there might be for joining the teaching profession. The good news is, whatever your motivation was to come into languages, then there's a good reason for you to join ALL. Keeping well informed, first one on there. Every week, usually Thursday, sometimes Friday, but usually Thursday, an email pops into my inbox, and it's all net, ALL net, and it's the weekly e-newsletter that comes summarising all sorts of useful things, snippets that are in the news, new publications, signposting to events and so on, but a really helpful reminder of just things going on in the languages world. I suspect quite a number of you will be about to go out on school placements, and you can start to feel quite disconnected already. You've probably got to know your modern language peer group wherever you're with your training provider quite well, and then you're about to be thrown out into the big world, and you're perhaps the only modern language trainee teacher in your school. So keeping regular contacts with groups of people is going to be key, and I'd say that the weekly newsletter is a good one for that. I've mentioned the magazine already there. Languages Today, be lovely. I'm sure Stephen would be delighted to receive offers of people giving views on anything, really, but perhaps reflections on your journey as a trainee teacher would be wonderful. Languages Today is a very safe way to contribute, whereas contributing to the journal might be a bit more of a challenge just right yet. But then those of you who work through and get some really cracking master's essays done, then obviously that would be something to consider in the future. Particularly to remain networked, part of the national community of language teachers. That for me is the key, that we're not just in our own little local bubble, either in our school or in our multi-academy trust or even in our local authority. We're not even just in a greater urban area, but we're part of a national community working together. Constantly learning and applying new teaching methods. I don't go ever, I've been teaching now for a very, very long time, and I don't go to a single ALL event without learning something new, particularly actually latterly when it's come to things to do with new resources, or particularly effective use of digital technology for teaching, which obviously at the moment has become absolutely key in what we're doing. But people share freely, people share their resources freely, share PowerPoints after events, give you links to things. It's a very gracious, giving community, and we really hope that you'll join and also be gracious and giving with your work. As trainee teachers, being proactive about your professional development's key. I absolutely would say that to all of our trainee teachers at St Mary's University. You need to own your professional development. Where you are on the journey will vary hugely, but wherever your current starting point, own it, know what you need to develop, and really go for it. But there are so many training events on offer. My only slight word of caution there, actually, if I'm honest, is to just be a little bit careful. This is my third webinar to do with languages that I've been in the last week. And some of the names I can see attending have attended all of them the same as me. Now, if you're using every single Saturday morning and quite a lot of your evenings, you're going to wipe yourselves out quite fast. So with my well-being hat on, be a little bit selective, but also feel free if you're halfway through listening. Helen said it before, halfway through listening to a webinar and it's not doing what you think it's, don't feel obliged to stay. No one's going to be offended, just dip out. But the key of it, obviously, is the bottom point there. As you get new ideas, inspiration, it reminds you why you wanted to be a teacher in the first place, helps us all to keep motivated. That is absolutely crucial. What do you get? Most of this I've mentioned already. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. I've mentioned Languages Today and AllNet. For you as trainee teachers, the members area, I would say, is an absolutely crucial place to visit on the website. So on the website there, you've got the language zones, which are for articles that are written in the target language, great cultural insights, which if you're going to be teaching A-level, or indeed you just want to actually refresh your own subject knowledge, really good place to go. But one other place that I would highly recommend to you as trainee teachers is the section called Learning from the Classroom. So Learning from the Classroom is sort of halfway between Languages Today magazine and the Language Learning Journal. So if you imagine you've got very learned, peer-reviewed at one end, and you've got a Languages Today, nice, easy read, full of information, but easy read magazine. Learning from the Classroom somewhere in the middle, because what we've got there are volunteers, again, ALL members, teaching in school, engaging in some kind of research, action research, often as part of their own Masters in Education that they're carrying on alongside teaching. And when they've done the research, we ask them just to summarise it in 2,000 words. So much shorter than your Language Learning Journal article, very practically focused, but nonetheless with that level of research underpinning, which is quite pivotal in what we're doing. Lots of useful references at the end of each article. So if you yourself, for example, if you're wanting to do an essay about, I don't know, making grammar active in your classroom, using song or music in your classroom, the role of phonics in Key Stage 3 language learning, you can pretty much guarantee that somebody will have written something of interest for you in Learning from the Classroom. So do check that area out. And actually, in turn, could I just encourage you, quite a few of the contributions over time there have come from trainee teachers at the end of their PGCE or their training year. They've then taken the time and energy to summarise some of their own work in 2,000 words. Wonderful contribution to make to the profession. I've mentioned about training courses, corporate members. Obviously, we hope all of you will become members like us, but we also have a number of corporate members there, publishers, the cultural institutes, so the Institut Français and the Goethe Institute and stuff, they're all corporate members, and they will share special offers and things with us as we go too. So you get a good chance to get member benefits there as well, and some opportunity for discounted fees or delegate fees at conferences. How do you join? Well, that's really easy. I would suggest you go to the website and just go to join. That's all very straightforward there. But if you prefer to contact someone by phone or email, the details are there too. I think you can actually still even send a letter if you want to ask to join. But obviously, I think the website is probably the most common one, to be honest there. You're probably now asking yourself, how much does it cost? We haven't lost any participants yet, so I'll keep with that one. I'm almost done. I think it's unbelievable value. I currently pay £70 a year because I'm a full member. But for trainee teachers, like many of you, and for newly qualified teachers, so certainly in your first year of teaching, membership's just £27.50 for the entire year. And I just point out that that is cheaper than one Starbucks coffee, or any other brand of your choice, obviously, per month. So really, really good value for everything there. And my closing thought really is this one. There's a proverb, I think it's a Kenyan proverb, which says that sticks that are tied together in a bundle are stronger than individual sticks. And I suppose if you just think of yourselves at the moment, we're all individual sticks, and therefore potentially vulnerable, fragile, but tied together, perhaps with the string of being part of the Association for Language Learning, does make us stronger. It keeps us motivated and firm in the profession, and keeps us inspired, and actually gives us the opportunity to give back to the profession as well. And please do receive and give in equal measure. Remember, the association is run by teachers, volunteers, for teachers, and it's good to all play our part. So I congratulate you on joining the best profession in the world, and I will hand back to Stephen.
Thank you very much, Annalisa. That was, as ever, full of enthusiasm and information for everyone who was listening. And welcome to all those people who've joined us in the interim as well. Just before we move on to our first breakout, which Helen is going to help me to organize, I hope, we've got a couple of people with us who were trainees last year and who are now obviously NQTs, and who just wanted to say a couple of things about what they got from their membership last year as trainee teachers. So Bridget and Elena, can you put on your microphones and just say hello to us?
Just to say, because I had to
Hello.
force everybody to be muted, which Elena is? I've got two Elenas. I'm going to make you all. I'm going to both
All the
Elenas.
Elenas. Let's have all the Elenas.
If you're called Elena, you can speak.
Hello, I'm Elena. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Would you like me to start, Stephen?
Yes, please do.
Well, I've been a member of ALL since last September, last year, and I have really no regrets of joining this professional association. So, so far, no disappointment whatsoever. Initially, I joined as a MFL trainee teacher from Bath Spa University and a British Council scholar, and I'm still very proud to be a member to this date. I have gained invaluable support from AL, especially during the start of pandemic, when most educational institutions switched to online learning. And the last face-to-face historical event, which was run by Association for Language Learning, that conference in Manchester on the 13th of March, was a true inspiration to me. Was brilliantly really organized, and I had a great opportunity to meet like-minded people, representatives from famous language institutions like the Goethe Institute, the Institut de Français, educational publishers like Oxford Press, Pearson Publisher, very prominent language development program developers. So I received a great wealth of knowledge from professionally run workshops and lectures, which I brought really lots of interesting ideas and resources to my school where I had my practice. And generally, I really felt really inspired by Association of Language Learning. And I found also later on that all online events arranged by Association for Language Learning, they were very, very carefully prepared. It enabled me to meet very interesting experts in the field who readily shared their knowledge. So at the moment, I teach mainly in adult education sector. So some of my clients are Foreign Commonwealth Office, Whitehall, Ministry of Defense, some corporate clients, international companies, and some materials which are provided by Association for Language Learning are really interesting even for adults. So I must admit that these clients are truly inspired by your materials, and thank you so much. As a language researcher, I'm currently finishing my PhD with the university in Australia. I also met some interesting colleagues from Association for Language Learning, with whom I truly hope to collaborate and publish some interesting articles on online education. So overall, I think being a member brings significant benefits, and I truly, truly recommend it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elena. So what you just said there about meeting people, I think that is the core of it, really, when we are able to have face-to-face meetings and you just chat with people, have breakfast with people if you're at conference, have a sandwich at lunchtime.
Yes, I think it brings the perspective, Stephen, that there is life outside the classroom.
Exactly,
Yes.
as well. Yes, that's true.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. And Bridget, were you going to say something as well?
Hi, yes. Well, I have to say, I'm not sure what I can add to what Elena just said, because I think she summed it up so brilliantly. And it's the same for me, that I've been a member of ALL for about a year, and through the British Council scholarship as well. And I think for me, what's really sort of stood out is the kind of people-based side of it. So I've attended some really excellent webinars. I've got to know who the kind of, really sort of inspirational and research-led language teachers are, and, heard them speak and heard about their ideas and what they're doing in the classroom. And I also was lucky enough to go to the conference in March and actually obviously attend it in person. And I found that really encouraging and inspiring, and it made me feel quite excited about being a languages teacher, really just because of the kind of quality of the presentations, the ideas, the experience of the people who were there talking to us. And also I think people are very generous, sort of sharing all their ideas and their research and experience. And so I found that really encouraging, and I just kind of I still feel encouraged by the thought that there are all these languages teachers out there. You know, there's a whole big network of us, and we all we all love languages and we all love teaching them. So I just found that really encouraging, and it gave me lots of ideas. So I think that for me, those have been the real sort of standout benefits. Is just meeting people and hearing their ideas. That's
great, thank you very much. So talking about that, one thing that Annalise has just mentioned to me in the chat that she forgot to say was that ALL has got ALL local groups all over the country. So you know about Helen, who's running this from ALL in London. I'm the chair of ALL in the Northeast, so I live in Durham, and we have our events mostly in Newcastle. Obviously at the moment there aren't any events because people can't meet. But normally you can find an ALL local group, which might be called a branch or a network or a primary hub if you're interested in primary teaching. And then you can meet these teachers who you're hearing about from Elena and from Bridget, who will give you lots of other ideas and support as well. So thank you to both of you. Later on, we'll hear from some more mature members who are amongst us this evening as well. So now I'm going to try to do, with Helen's help, is to put people into a breakout room for a short quiz. So it's a quiz, it's a low stakes activity, as we say nowadays in our jargon. I don't expect the answers to the quiz, but I thought you might like to have a look at the questions and begin to think about whether you might find out the answers at some time. So what we might know about our language curriculum and about our schools system in particular is that education is full of buzzwords and of initials. So I've put 3 sets of initials up there for you, just so you can put into the chat if you know what any of those 3 sets of initials mean, just to show me that you're actually paying attention to what I'm talking about. So I can't see the chat at the moment, but I'm hoping Helen will nod at me if people are.
What I'm going to do, what you wanted me to do was, if I've put it in the chat, then you've got access to that when you go into your breakout rooms.
No, that's for the next screen, Helen.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm just, for the time being, I'm just wanting them to put into chat if they know what ALL or PGCE or GCSE stands for.
Don't look at what I've written. That's giving it away. Don't.
I can't see the chat.
Right, so in the chat, we've got GCSE, General Certificate of Secondary Education, Association for Language Learning, Postgraduate Certificate of Education.
That's it.
So yes, very good.
So the ones you're going to get when you go into your quiz room now are these here. And some of these, as you see, are initials, and some of them are buzzwords. So I just want you for 4 minutes just to swap ideas about what you think they might be. And if you don't know, that's fine. We'll tell you when you come back out.
All right.
So Helen's now going to drive you into a room.
I am. So I've never driven so many. I'm assigning 182 participants into 22 rooms. So let's see how it goes. Create the rooms. Open the rooms. So how long have they got? Are you there, Stephen? Oh, you've gone in as well. As you come back, you are automatically muted. I'd like, did it work? Was it okay? Oh, but I can't hear you, Karen. Got to perhaps it's because I've not let you unmute yourselves. Right, just a minute. I'm really nervous. Did it work? Can you give me a nod if it worked?
Yes.
Yes.
I suddenly thought I muted everybody. So I thought, oh, I hope they've got the power to unmute themselves. And I lost Stephen as well. Is Stephen here?
Yeah, I went into a room.
I couldn't find you. And I thought, I don't really know how long you want to do this for. I hope that was okay.
So thank you. Yes. So anyone got a question about any of the things that are on there that you didn't work out?
Oh, group 6, right? Gold stars to group 6.
Well done, group 6.
Yeah, that's from David. David Shanks is awarding that.
Okay, well, ask us in the chat if you want to, or if you just want to maintain the mystery until you hear about it later on in your life, that's fine as well.
Pillars of progression, that seems to be the one that most people are asking.
Yeah, that's the one that's partly Ofsted and partly NCLP, the National Centre for Excellence for Language Pedagogy. They're the pillars that we as language teachers should be thinking about. So they're things like vocabulary and grammar and phonics. And the fourth one, I couldn't remember what it was when I was in my room. Is it the one about meaningful practice?
The fourth one of what?
Of the pillars.
Oh, sorry. Shows how much I was listening, doesn't it? I was so anxious about whether or not this is working.
Okay, so now I'm going to pass over to Judith, who's going to have a little talk to us about boxes and jewels and treasure.
Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome. It's lovely to see you all. Hopefully you can see it. I brought a little treasure box. Can you see it a little bit? It's a bit of a mystery because it's kind of coming in and out of the picture. Here's my treasure box. And I just wanted to share a little story with you. So I trained as a teacher before I came to the UK. And when I came to the UK, I was very fortunate to attend a Language World conference, and that is where I met Helen. And Helen introduced me to ALL London. And this is really where I started to meet loads and loads of teachers from different parts of the UK and languages teachers who just started to train in the UK, but also teachers who'd been working in the profession for many years. And what everybody seemed to have in common is that whenever I would attend an event, for example, on a Saturday in January, on a cold Saturday, was the passion for language teaching and learning. And a passion to share, and a passion to also try out new things. And in one of the conversations that I had, whilst I then started joining ALL London as a committee member and started making coffee and tea, I was once told about the importance of having a treasure box. So here is my treasure box. And the idea of the treasure box is this, that when you meet your pupils, hopefully you will give them all treasure. Each of your pupils has a box filled with treasure, and that's where you start. And every time you praise a pupil genuinely, then you add treasure to their box. And then when you, for example, when there is something that happens that perhaps, you know, you might have to eventually tell somebody off, what happens? Has anybody got an idea? What happens when you have to tell a pupil off? What happens with the treasure? Yeah, you take treasure out of the box. Yeah, and what do you want to though ensure? That there is always enough treasure in the box. Yeah, so the idea is that you ensure that you praise more than you tell off, that you ensure that when somebody does something where you need to tell them off or something happens, that you catch them being good, because that's how you then put treasure back into their box. So if something happens and you then see, oh, now they're on task again, say, oh, well done, you're on task. Or you put a thumb up, or you nod, like, yeah, with a smile. Those are all moments where you put treasure back in the box. And this must be, this is really a way for you to show that you care. It's a way to show them that you appreciate them, not only in the languages classroom, because you can pray and genuinely praise them anywhere where you see them, in school or just outside of school as they leave, or in your languages classroom. And it's a way for you to build a relationship with your pupils. And one thing that you might want to do as you start being in your school is to perhaps be the one to send out a postcard, offer to support the class teacher, to perhaps make a phone call home and say, look, this pupil is working really hard. So not to just kind of get in touch when something is not working, but to actually get in touch when things are great, and when pupils are doing something that is positive, that is good, whether they're helping out in a classroom or whether there might be somebody who's speaking for the first time. And yeah, each child has their own treasure box, because each pupil is an individual, and you want to see them as individuals. And I'd also like to give this idea of the treasure box to you all as an idea for yourselves. So I work as a trainee teacher, as a teacher. I train teachers at Goldsmith, and I used to give out Post-its. Now, of course, in the virtual world, we can't do that anymore right now. But what I would ask you to do is to find a treasure box also for yourself, and to put in treasure like cards, or you might print out an email, or so open your treasure box and put things in. Or when in the classroom, when your mentor says something positive about something that you've done, then put that in. Or you have one of your colleagues saying, hey, great, I really like that resource, would you like to share it with me? Or you might meet somebody at an ALL event, and you might then get in touch with them and share resources. All those things are positive things, and they are treasures. So put those in your treasure box, so that when you have a moment when you're tired, or when things are getting a bit tough, you remember all the amazing things. And so hopefully today you can put a little treasure in your box to write something down about the positive experience that you hopefully had today at the ALL national event for languages trainee teachers. And maybe that will be the start of your treasure box.
Thank you very much, Judy. That's a lovely idea. And I hope you all have some treasure, as Judy says, to take away with you and to keep there, to keep you going on those days when it's like today in the Northeast was a dark and damp day. So one of those days you want to snuggle up with your treasure box in the evening. And now I just wanted to introduce you to Gina. Gina is the chair of ALL in Manchester, and Gina is among the more mature members, as am I, of the group this evening. Just so Gina can tell us something about the joys of being a language teacher, whatever age you might be. Gina, you're on mute at the moment. You're on mute.
It was my fault because I muted everybody. And now I'm,
Right.
I'm
Now I'm okay.
sorry.
Not a problem. Right. Okay. So have you actually said what I'm doing? No, it doesn't matter. Right. Well, I jotted down some ideas. Stephen said I hadn't got long, so I'm trying to be fast. Things that I love about, have always loved about teaching languages. Well, you're doing something that you love for a start from the outset. You love those languages, you love the culture, and you're passing on that love and enthusiasm and your knowledge to all your pupils who are out there. A fascinating thing when you're teaching is making sure that you get the stepping stones right. And when you realise that you've actually taught them something and they've really learnt it because you've built it up so carefully for them, that's a real plus because they're happy and you're happy that they actually know it. The enjoyment that you get in lessons, the pupils have enjoyment, you have enjoyment, the fun, the culture, the activities that you do with them, the games, you play games all the way through. They're absolutely brilliant for practicing grammar, vocabulary as well, but grammar in particular, but I'm a great grammar fan. It really, it's wonderful when you see how enthusiastic pupils are. They can be really captivated from the beginning, but all the way through you have chances to actually recapture them just if they are going a little bit off. One of the lovely things is when children start to try to use languages from the very, very beginning. The year 3 pupils who always greet you in the corridor with bonjour or au revoir or whatever, and the weakest kid in the class who will at the end of the school day stop you and say, bonjour madame, chocolat, hoping that I'm going to offer him a piece of chocolate as he got in the class. Those kids who interrupt the lessons positively, where there's a little lull when you're about to change something and a pupil will say, et maintenant, because they know that you're going to be saying that, and they really take on board all these things that you're saying all the time to them. Those who interrupt them will say, when you're playing a game and they've not won yet, and I remember one young man saying, kann ich haben ein Bonbon bitte? So I corrected him, and thereafter the game broke down. Everyone tried to get the whole sentence correct with the modal verb and their infinitive at the end, and they all got a sweet eventually. The game went out through the window that day. The kids fall in love with words. The kid who comes up to you and says, I really love that word, you eat, and then will come up to you a few weeks later and say, I'm you eat on Friday. Lovely things like that. The lad who, really tall lad who just got so attracted to the word 84. And he would say it as often as he could right the way through to the 5th form. The satisfaction that you get with the 6th form when you suddenly realise, if you haven't noticed before, they're using the passive and the subjunctive without having to think about it. They just do it quite naturally. When the members of staff at school say, do you bribe them to talk in the foreign language outside your classroom while they're waiting to come in? No, they just did it. When you can actually laugh, there are so many things that you can laugh about with them. Trying to show them something, they'll be enthused when you try to show them something. The creme caramel experiment, where they all had a creme caramel and I was demonstrating how you actually demoule, what do you do in English? You get it out of its pot anyway by pulling that little tab. Of course, mine missed the dish, didn't it? So, but just being able to laugh with the kids as well, and they know that you're human. Those heartwarming moments where a child will perhaps win something in a game. One young man who'd won a small bar of soap said to me, what is it? I said, it's a bar of soap. He said, I'll give my mum this for Mothering Sunday, because he came from a very impoverished background, that particular one. The enthusiasm that you feel for the pupils who just go on to have super jobs, and they will contact me and say, I only got it because of the language, you know. And then you find that someone's gone on from you, they've gone to uni, they've gone via Harvard, and they're now teaching, they're now working in some chemical establishment, I will say no more than that, in Switzerland, still using their German. And when you go on their website, you find that their languages are English and German. Those sorts of things are wonderful. And those kids who still want to keep in contact with you. Sadly, some of them are by this point saying, you remember, I did become a pilot, I've just retired. And you think, gosh, that makes me feel old. Thank goodness pilots actually retire early. But it's just the wonderful thing about being in teaching with the kids. Have I actually overdone my welcome?
No,
Stephen?
you've done exactly the right thing, Georgina. I'm not allowed to call you Georgina because that's when you've been told off. But your name comes up as Georgina. So thank you very much. That was great. And I also introduced Susie, who's our new ALL membership officer and runs the primary hub in York, just to say something similar when she gets unmuted.
Oh, sorry, Susie. Ooh. Where are you, Susie? There you are, Susie. Asked to unmute.
So Susie's
Thank
in Paris.
you, Helen. That's great. And thankfully, my Wi-Fi connection is much better than it was earlier in the meeting. Thank you, Georgina. I hope you do get to read the chat comments, because there's lots and lots of really lovely comments, both for yourself and for Judith's sessions. So thank you very much. Georgina, as I said in the chat, is responsible for some fantastic events in the Manchester area, and there are already quite a number of people on the chat saying that they would be willing to travel up to Manchester for your events. So that's high praise indeed. So as Stephen said, I am the new honorary membership officer, working alongside Stephen and Judith, so very much a team effort. And it's just lovely to see so many of you on the call. I think at our height we had over 200 people, which is just fantastic. On a wet Wednesday evening. I'm not actually in Paris, sadly. I'm in wet, dreary York. But as Stephen said,
I think we're losing Susie there.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that her internet connection, I thought she was being remarkably still at one point. And I realised that she had frozen. So we might have to come back to Susie later on.
To encourage you.
Oh, but Susie's still carrying on.
She doesn't know. We can't.
We lost you.
So I'm going to put a message to her in the chat, everyone. Susie, we can't hear you.
You seem to be back with us, Susie.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
I've just put in the chat, sorry for the poor connection. It seems to be dipping in and out. I won't stay long because it looks like I've got quite an insecure connection. But just to reiterate what the others have said, really, just to enjoy your membership, enjoy connecting with all of the fantastic members of ALL, and we really do genuinely take great pleasure in supporting colleagues, trainees like yourselves who are in the very early stages of their careers. So you'll be more than welcome.
Thanks a lot. That's great. And the other person I wanted to introduce you to was Nick, who on my screen is in the top right-hand corner. Nick's a volunteer in ALL London as well. And Nick does a very interesting session later in the year, I understand, Nick.
And you are, oh, sorry.
Yeah, there we go. Right. Okay. So this is about, wow. Okay. If you manage to get a job after a 10-minute chat on an ALL, that's going to be a miracle. Quick pointers. So there's only one slide. And basically, I thought if it will oblige, I would, right. These are things I'm going to whip through fairly briefly. Yeah. And some are actually longer than other ones. Right. First one is there a job season? Well, it is absolutely essential you get your act together and start looking for jobs before you get the official piece of paper. sadly, I know of one person last year on our skit who really didn't want to apply for jobs until they were sure they got the qualification and missed all the good jobs. So really, first thing is, I'm sure you all know the TES. The TES is absolutely the way to go, and that's all online and free and has a very good search engine. So that's the web link there. The kind of, I would reckon that the world season is about the second week in January. I looked this evening, I live at SE5, there are 13 French jobs near me and 9 Spanish jobs. So there are jobs all the time, but really what happens is head teachers get appointed a year ahead of everybody else. Yeah, heads of department probably getting appointed in November. And so that all shuffles through the system. And so when you start after Christmas, you start looking at the TS, that's when all the jobs are going to be there, but keep checking all the time. It's also helpful to notice that state schools usually have half a term's notice. So that means any existing teacher who's moving a job will have to have handed in their resignation, yeah, by the end of the summer half term. Yeah, and for independent schools, it's a term. So if you're thinking of one sector or the other, then the independent sector season is broadly earlier, but there will be jobs all the way through summer. Stuff happens, and not all the jobs are magically filled, you know, in the second week of January. So do keep that out, and you really should be looking at where you want to go, which brings me on to point number 2. Do you apply for every job or the dream job? And the answer is probably neither. If you apply for every job, you will never teach a decent lesson because they will make you jump so many hoops of applications, you won't have time to do any marking or any preparation. And if you only apply for the dream job, you're probably going to be so stressed out, you won't actually be the real you. So I suppose it's, you know, it's like you need a bit of practice, but actually the stress of applying for every job or just the one job is dangerous. CV, right, really simple. If it's gone beyond 2 sides of A4, I'm not going to read it. And I mean of a reasonable size font. Because if you are going to bore me like that, you're going to be awful with the kids. You can't tell me what I need to know on 1 side of A4, sorry, 2 sides of A4, you're going to be bad in the classroom. I don't want a dictionary. I want just tell me the essential stuff. And if you are a career changer, for heaven's sake, prune out all the other stuff. You know, I don't care about your time in this, that, and the other, unless it impacts on why you're a better teacher or what it can bring to teaching. So anything to do with dealing with clients, that's going to be really useful. You get the idea. Letters of application, no time really to whip through that, but there's a lot of really bad advice out there. Don't even bother reading anybody that's not in education. So I'm a great photocopier salesperson, yeah, you know, cleared 200 copiers last week. That does not go down well in a school's environment. That link is to a very good article, and this guy has written a couple of other ones. So I'd recommend you read those. A word of warning, a institution which will not be named gave students a sample letter saying when people send out this letter, you've got a high chance of getting to interview. Do not do that, because actually those are available online. And I actually got this letter out at one of these sessions for ALL London. And one of the people in the audience said, I actually wrote that letter. Now, I've knocked out all the personal details, but that takes us to the interview. And there are some caveats here. And the absolute biggest one is if the person who wrote the letter isn't the same as the person who turns up for interview, you're right down the bottom of my list. Why? Because you're going to be spending a lot of time on your own with children with not that much supervision. If I can't trust you to be the real you at interview, you're probably not going to be the real you with kids, and it's not going to work. And that's a dangerous person to have in your department. So I would say that. Next thing, every minute counts. So you think you're having a nice cup of tea, you're not. Somebody's looking at you. Right, don't get all fidgety. The whole point is we're as nice as possible to allow you to show the best of yourself. But really, if you think there's just a thing as a nice little chat with somebody, that information is feeding back, because some people get very, very good at the kind of really go-get-em interview, hard questions. They've prepared all their answers about target language. And again, all you've got to do is spend half a day on the internet and you can come up with some pretty convincing answers. I want to know the person who's coming to the department, who's going to interact with other teachers, who's going to spend a lot of their time on their own with kids. And so we want to know everything about you. So that was that. Okay, we talked about the real you. Yeah, it's a jigsaw. So I think most people go, I really want this job, etc. No. Look, trust me, we really, really want the right candidate and the best candidate for the job. Why? Because if we appoint the wrong person, the first thing, and it's not going well, the first thing we have to do is try to save them. So we're going to put a lot of remedial care in to helping you teach, to get it right, to sort it out. That's time consuming. If we decide it's really not for you, we're not going to confirm the contract, then that has got to be really well documented. Yeah, we can't just go, now we don't like you. There's going to be written evidence, there's going to be assessment, there's going to be observation, there's going to be evidence of help. And that is just time consuming. Every time we get the right person, they get better and better. They spot problems that you hadn't seen and flag them up before they happen. Yeah, they just get better and better and better. And there's no such thing as a good teacher. There's a kind of good teacher for that school. So sometimes we just need someone to do these languages at that level. All right, that person's really good, but actually it's the wrong language. We can't make the timetable work. And really, if you do have anything that looks like a second language, even if it's to year 7, you know, bottom set, whatever, that is so helpful on the timetable. If you're a one language pony, if that's not a kind of weird expression, that really makes you difficult to employ. And we would always have in a contract, you'll be able to teach year 9 within 2 years, because we cannot exist. Timetabling is so difficult now. We can't exist without some flexibility. And frankly, if you're a good language teacher, it's going to map across. And I don't mean your Mandarin is going to be brilliant. I mean that, look, honestly, if you can do a bit of French, you're probably going to be able to wing a bit of Spanish. Don't tell the Spaniards I said that. But you get the idea that real skill is the teaching. And so long as you are confidently ahead of what you're doing, you know what you're doing, that's it. And again, here, little tip here. I'm really interested in people 3/4 of the way the whole day. Why? Because they're really tired. They've had all the formal interviews, they've done a sort of demo lesson, they've chatted to people, they've been polite, they're really, really dog tired. Last 5 minutes, everybody wants the job, they've had a lovely day and they're thinking about getting home, they're all bushy-tailed. But 3/4 of the way there, they're going to be on a bit of a low, and that's what that person's really like. And I always ask the receptionists and the secretaries who they think is going to get the job. And the number of times they're right is stunning. Because when they come up, do you come up to reception? I'm here for the job, I expect I'm going to get it. Or are you overly timid? Right, but don't overthink this, but you'd be really surprised. They just get a real sort of flair, as it were, to work out who actually is going to get on with kids. And it's surprising how often they are. And I ask them, how do you, as a candidate, deal with someone in a, and I don't really mean this, in someone who you think might not be important on the day? So you can really apply it to the head teacher, but how do you deal with a normal, really good person working in that institution? And if you're offhand and rude and unpleasant, you know, you're going to be like that with kids. So this was just to show you what was up for grabs in SE5. I'll be applying for all of these jobs. And I beat you to it. Look, there's no way that I can do applying for a job justice in, and I had my stopwatch on, whatever that took, which I think was, reasonably brief. So look, the best thing you can do is be sensible, be the real you, and that's probably it. And it may be that word jigsaw, You're not the right jigsaw for that school at that time. But generally, if you've got this far, you're going to do it. If you're worried about not passing, that your institution should have flagged that up massively. So for heaven's sake, apply for a sensible number of jobs. Don't apply for them all, and good luck to all of you.
Thanks, Nick. We're now well over time, by the way, everyone. So thank you for staying on. We're going to continue anyway, but if you need to go, then don't worry about leaving us. We understand that we've taken longer than we promised to do. Nick, there were 1 or 2 questions in the chat. So if you fancy having a look at those and you can answer to any in the chat, that would be great.
Well, can I suggest that we could answer that later if we are late, if we've got another activity, haven't we, to do? Sorry to break in.
Yes, later on, that's what I meant, yes.
Oh, that's right, no.
So just to go back to my presentation then, just to tell you a couple of things about the ALL website, which has been mentioned a few times there. So my PowerPoint is now, let me just go back up again. So you've heard all this already from Annalise, you don't need to hear this again. This is the main page on the ALL website, which is relevant to you this year. So alllanguages.org.uk is our website. You'll find lots of things on the homepage that you'll find interesting. But the page which is dedicated to people in their training years is the one called Student. So you can either type in that URL or you can click on the bit that says Trainee Teacher, and that'll take you to the same page. The main thing that's on there that's new at the moment, there are some things there from the end of last year's training year that are there for you to read if you'd like to do so. But the main thing is a document that I've just created for you, which is about things that are on the ALL website or on some other ALL web presences, because we also have blogs and other things, I'm not quite sure what they are, that are relevant to you. So on that page, which I will try to show you now, you'll find things that I think are, here we go. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that.
So I've listed, as you see things down, there's your page. You can see the second one down, that's the trainee page. And on the right-hand side, it tells you whether they're free or whether you have to be a member. Obviously, it's better to be a member because then you get everything as well as discounts on all the events that he's talked about. There's a section on the home page about help during this particular period, learning at home and being aware of COVID in the classroom. There are things about making the case, the sort of things that all teachers do at all phases of their practice, whether they're learning to be teachers or whether they're experienced. How to keep up to date. Again, Annalise mentioned these. So the AllNet weekly email only comes to members, nobody else gets that. So that's a good way of keeping in touch. Briefings are when there's a specific policy development that we think you need to know about. So you don't have to read the whole of the report that comes from the Department for Education. We will make a briefing about it to give you the key points. There are the events, details about the magazine you heard about, the language zone. So if you're teaching a particular language, there are articles by other teachers in that language. There are only a few languages there at the moment because most of our members teach only a few languages. But if you want to start something for a language that isn't there, we can devise a new page for you. I mean, it'll cost us some money, but we can do it. Don't worry about it. Separate pages for primary and for secondary teachers. And then these are all the things to do with CPD. You've heard all about these from Annalise already, but this is where you can find out more. Now, the Barry Jones archive is highly relevant to trainee teachers. Barry Jones is a trainee teacher of international repute. He taught in Cambridge, and he was a very creative and very hugely personable person, very humane, very nice man. And when he knew he was going to be dying, he gave us an archive of his work that he'd done for trainee teachers. So that's especially for you, and that's on the website as well, if you're an ALL member only. And then that's about the events, the sort of events we're having at the moment. We have a monthly event, which is for NQTs, RQTs, and trainees. And we're having one of these on Friday. So if you feel like coming back on Friday at the same time, then you can follow that link to find out how to book for that one. So that document is all on that web page there. that page there called Student. You'll find the document on that page, and I'll put it in the chat as well, that link, in case you haven't had time to copy that down. Thank you very much on that. Now, the other activity, I don't think we have to do it, do we, Helen? Unless people want to do another activity. So tell me in the chat, do you want to do another breakout activity, which is just a little game? It'll take 2 minutes. You go and have some dinner. That's a good idea, yes. So we don't want to do the other activity now. I'm not seeing any wild enthusiasm for that. So I think that's okay. So I'm just going to check on my PowerPoint that I've finished everything I wanted to say. And the answer is, yes, I have, except to say that if you do want to join in the near future, there is a discount because you've come to the webinar this evening. So if you join on the website, as Annalise described earlier on, when you get to the checkout, you can put in the word webinar in capital letters and the number 10, and it'll give you a 10% discount on the fee that's mentioned in there automatically. Save it for Friday, says Christopher, my other activity. We probably won't have time then either. Anyway, that's the session. You've heard from members older and young. You've heard from people who are experienced within ALL at different levels. You are welcome to be a member, obviously, and to then join in and be one of those people who volunteers in ALL locally or nationally. That's something that's open to anyone who's a member. So it's there for you to make of what you can. It's a membership association. Members make it what it is. So whatever you'd like to do, you can do it with us. We're there to support you and to help you do it. So we're not going to throw you out now. If you want to hang around and ask a few more questions or have a little chat with somebody, then you're welcome to stay and put on your videos and unmute yourself to do that. But otherwise, if you need to go and have some dinner, you're welcome to do that as well. It's very good for you. I'm going to have some later on myself. Thank you very much for joining in. Helen, is there anything else I need to say from your point of view?
Well, I just want to say on behalf of everybody here, thank you, Stephen, for coordinating this and for putting it together. Thank you ever so much to the speakers, everybody. And it was great to be able to hear people from the beginning of the profession right through to people, as you say, more mature, perhaps. And, you know, really, for those of you who've come